This is Cornstalks and Sports Talk, your go-to Iowa-based sports show, hosted by the one and only Elliot Clough.
What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
What's up, Cedar Valley, and hello to the Hawkeye State. This is Cornstalks and Sports Talk, your Iowa-based sports show here on AM 950 KOEL. My name is Elliot Clough, at Elliot Clough on Twitter, and we have got a packed episode for you today. First off, we're talking with Isaiah Weston and hearing a little bit more about his choice. Joining the Cleveland Browns is an undrafted free agent wide receiver. He is out of UNI. Very excited about that. And also, we'll be talking with our very own NFL draft specialist, Ryan Roberts, from RiseandDraft.com on what he thought of the draft for guys from Iowa, Iowa State, and UNI. Best situations, best fit, etc., stuff like that. So we got a great show ahead. But before we get to our two guests today, there is one thing I want to start off with talking about in this first segment here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk. And that is Xavier Foster. Now, some of you out there might recognize the name. It might sound familiar to you. But if you don't know it, his name, like I said, Xavier Foster, he's from Oskaloosa, Iowa. He won a state championship in basketball, 3A state championship with Cole Henry, who's now with the UNI Panthers in Iowa. And like I said, 4-star recruit. He ended up playing his first year of collegiate basketball at Iowa State. And more recently, what he's been in the news for is not as positive, not as good for a young man coming out of the state of Iowa. If you haven't heard, Foster was accused of sexual assault by an 18-year-old girl while he was in Ames. Her identity has not been released, and nothing has come from that investigation, and nor should her identity be released, in my opinion. And like I said, Foster, his name was cleared after a year-long investigation by the Ames Police Department. And so as to whether or not the young woman made it up, it remains unclear. As far as I know, like I said, the police solely said there was a lack of evidence. That's all we know in regards to the case, but his name was cleared within this month. And prior to that, like I said, Foster was a huge commit for the Iowa State basketball program, specifically Steve Prohm, who was ultimately fired in favor of TJ Otzelberger to take over. But it was big because Foster was in-state. And Iowa State doesn't tend to really get guys who are in-state nor keep them, meaning a lot of their stars are from out of state. I mean, you look at Monte Morris, you look at, let's see here, George Niang, not Iowa natives. Anyway, so Foster was a big pickup for them in the 2019 class. And not only did he commit after being named a 4-star recruit, he was recruited by some of the biggest basketball programs in the country, Baylor, Creighton, and Kansas. Baylor and Kansas, who are two of the more recent basketball programs that won national titles. So Foster was a high-profile, highly sought-out recruit. And in his freshman season with the Cyclones, he didn't really do that much. If we're being quite frank, he was not all that impactful. The 7-foot center put up 4 points and 1.7 rebounds in just 7.8 minutes per game as a freshman. Ultimately, he ended up sitting the remainder of the season with a foot surgery he had in January. It was due to something that was lagging from high school, so he didn't finish out his freshman season. Spent 3 months rehabbing that foot. All the while, this investigation was going on. And ultimately, what happened is in October, he was dismissed from the team. This was, again, with TJ Otzelberger taking over, no longer Steve Prohm. And the athletic department came out and said that not only was he dismissed because of the sexual assault allegations, but they said that it was among other things. Oh, it led up to this. Well, why are we just hearing about it now? If it's not just about the sexual assault allegations, what's happening? How has nobody found that out? There are people that cover the Iowa State Cyclones incredibly well, and no information prior to that was given to the public. Whether that is true or not, I don't know. It's all speculation from me right now. Elliot Clough here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk, AM 950 KOEL. But here we are in May of 2022. I believe his name was cleared April of 2022. He's got a bunch of interest. He entered the transfer portal. That's probably some vital information to give you there. But once he was dismissed from the team and his name cleared, he was officially put in the transfer portal and allowed to go somewhere else, wherever that might be. I mean, he was really sought out, even though he had that allegation attached to him. I'll list the teams on Twitter that apparently showed interest in him, according to Matthew Bain from the Des Moines Register. And this is just in one tweet. TCU, Drake, Southern Illinois, Cincinnati, Prairie View A&M, Missouri, Alabama A&M, Fordham, Creighton, Kent State, Dayton, Charleston, Coastal Carolina, Utah Valley, Cal Baptist, Arizona State. And that was very early on. That was super early on. So 2 NBC teams in that list of teams that showed interest in the former 4-star recruit Xavier Foster when he left the Iowa State program. And first of all, kid is incredibly talented. I don't think those stats his freshman season that he put up did him justice. Foster, again, a 4-star recruit. He was part of USA Basketball when he was in high school. And again, it was a huge pickup for the Cyclones. He has certainly the potential to be something. Again, a 7-foot center in Iowa, that's not something you find very often. A 4-star recruit, too. And so the amount of interest that was shown across the country should not surprise anyone. I mean, even with the allegations, because of how talented he is, how talented he was and is, that's going to bring interest from just about every program in the country. No, not UNI, no, not Iowa. They kind of they threw their hands up in the air and said, not touching that with a 50-foot pole, and that's understandable too. But I want to get into the nitty-gritty of it all, because if you followed along with my sports career at all, which up until this point, I don't blame you if you didn't. Very raw up until recently and getting this first full-time job. But he went to and visited Southern Methodist this last weekend, ultimately decided to commit. Southern Methodist, or SMU, if that sounds a little bit more familiar to you. So he'll be joining the Mustangs. And they've got a new coach. He's on his way out of Iowa, and this could be a great restart for him as he likely hopes to make the NBA in the coming years. And I don't blame him. I would want to get the hell away from a situation like that too. And I mean, again, who knows? As far as we know, he's completely innocent. There was a complete lack of evidence, according to the Ames police. And there's been nothing to substantiate the claim. So as far as we know, based on the justice system, Xavier Foster is an innocent man. And there are a couple things why this is different to me. I mentioned my early career. When I was at the student talk station, the student radio station at UNI, that was when the Kareem Hunt situation went down. And I've talked about Ray Rice before as well. If you're not familiar, Ray Rice, I believe he punched his fiance in the face in an elevator and knocked her out cold. That was caught on camera. Kareem Hunt, after allegedly being called the N-word, which is never acceptable, allegedly, I don't know if that was proven or not, but Kareem Hunt kicked a woman in the face. And Kareem Hunt got to once again play professional football and get paid millions of dollars. Now, Ray Rice wasn't allowed back in the league, and I think that was the right thing. I mean, he was a guy who was an advocate against bullying, and then there's this video that comes out of him punching his fiance in the face and knocking her out cold. And there's a reason why this is a different circumstance. There's a reason why I'm not as vehemently against Xavier Foster getting another opportunity to play collegiate basketball as I am those two getting their way back into the NFL despite domestic violence and despite kicking a woman in the face. For the entirety of the situation and the investigation that Foster has gone through, he was 18 or 19 years old. Like, in the grand scheme of things, that is a child. I'm 26 years old. I'm a child. Like, obviously, I'm independent. I have my own insurance. I take care of myself. I pay for everything. But in the grand scheme of things, we got another 60, 70 years left, do I? Now, I would not consider myself to be as immature as I was at 18 or 19 years old. But the thing about that, 18 or 19, you know when things are wrong. You know right from wrong, especially when you're educated the way you should be as a collegiate athlete when it comes to issues of consent, when it comes to issues of sexual assault, of domestic assault, because they value you and they want you to be able to play when they have you on the team. They don't want to lose you because you did something stupid. And so the education, it was likely there for Xavier. Maybe though, he didn't know the gravity of the situation he may have put himself in. Again, we don't know the specifics of this. This is all speculation. Is he old enough, in my opinion, to make right or wrong decisions? Yes. Especially in regards to consent, especially nowadays. But he was 18 years, 19 years old. He might not know the drastic impact of his actions and where and when he is, any location. He might not know this girl at all. Again, it could be fake. It could be completely made up. And the lack of evidence certainly helps his case, clearly. And my second point, other than the fact that he's 18, 19 years old, he might not know the ramifications of him being in the wrong place at the wrong time. He might not even be able to recognize the wrong place at the wrong time. That is essentially what I'm getting at for my first point as to why I don't think that Xavier Foster should necessarily be punished for the circumstances of his innocence, his ultimately decided innocence. And the second here on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL with me, Elliot Clough, at Elliot Clough on Twitter. The second was exactly what I've said several times now, the lack of evidence. With Kareem Hunt, with Ray Rice, we saw the film, we saw the tape, we saw it all on social media. Excuse me, we saw it all on social media. It was definitive what they did. Nobody wanted Ray Rice after that. I think it was garbage that the Browns signed Kareem Hunt, and we've apparently forgiven him because he's impactful on the football field. When we all saw him kick a woman in the face. You don't get to do that, not serve jail time, play in the NFL, and make millions of dollars. That is not how this works. That is not how this should work. But Xavier Foster isn't Ray Rice. He isn't Kareem Hunt. He did what he needed to do legally. He was cleared. His name was cleared. Essentially given an innocence plea. He got out of the area. He's no longer in Iowa. He's away from the situation that happened, and he is moving on. He's playing in a different state with a great program. And if further investigation results in a guilty conviction, fine. I trust the justice system. Unlike a lot of people in this country, I trust the justice system. But for now, that justice system has cleared his name. And what Foster is doing, what Foster has done, is said, all right, I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to turn my life back to the way I want it to be. I'm ready for this correction to be made. And I'm going to move south. I'm going to get out of Iowa. I'm going to go to Dallas, Texas, and play for Southern Methodist University, SMU. And I'm going to focus on basketball. And hey, I might have a shot to get back to the NBA. I could make millions of dollars in college via the NIL. This kid played for USA Basketball. He was a 4-star recruit. He won a state championship. He went to Iowa State, one of the premier programs for basketball in the country, at least at certain points in time. And now, after his life was thrown off track, something he didn't expect to happen, happened. He's taken responsibility for the situation. He's addressed it. His name has been cleared, and he's moving on. And I, for one, for right now, will root for Xavier Foster after the absolute hell that young man has been through before the age of 20. I think anything else is unfair to him. And again, if the justice system returns and says, hey, we found some evidence, I will abide with it, and I will be done with Xavier Foster. But for right now, his name is cleared, and he's figuring it out. He's taking responsibility, and he's moving on with his life, and that is something that I can root for. We will be right back here on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL with me, Elliot Clough. We'll be talking with former UNI wide receiver Isaiah Weston, and now the newest member of the Cleveland Browns.
Welcome back to Corn Stalks and Sports Talk here on AM 950 KOEL with me, Elliot, at Elliot Clough on Twitter. So the NFL draft happened last week, and many of you know Trevor Penning was selected number 19 overall in the first round to the New Orleans Saints. But one name you might not know, but you should know, is Isaiah Weston, uber talented wide receiver from the Panthers who went undrafted and is now the newest member of the Cleveland Browns organization. Isaiah, how you doing today, man?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm great. He's kind enough to join us here on a Saturday morning as he's getting ready to head out to Cleveland. So you told me a little bit about it over text when I shot you a text after you got signed. A few teams sought you out. What were the other teams?
The other teams were the Bears, Vikings, and the Texans called out. And I think there was another team, but I can't remember. There was so many phone calls happening in like span of 10 minutes though. But those teams. But in terms of the Browns, they're offering what was more on the table for them. Contract was good. They have my favorite QB, Deshaun Watson. They have my recruiter that got me to UNI, Brandon Lynch. He was the DB's coach when I first came in. So, and I had a great relationship with him. So him being there was a really good plus. Wide receiver room is a great opportunity to get a spot. So it was a lot more on the table for them than anywhere else. So I felt like it was a good opportunity.
Well, we'll talk about it a little bit more with that wide receiver group, but it looks wide open. I mean, like you got Amari Cooper, right? Everybody knows
Amari
him.
Cooper.
Donovan Peoples-Jones is another name that I think a lot of people will recognize. But other than that, I mean, it looks wide open.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. So that I definitely looked at that. The Bears and the Vikings and the Texans, their rosters and stuff. But it came down to Cleveland and Chicago. But Cleveland was just, I felt a better fit. So, yeah.
Have you ever been to Cleveland?
No.
Okay.
The only time I've ever been to Ohio was when to go play Youngstown State. So, but other than that, never been there before. I have been to Chicago plenty of times. Absolutely love the city and stuff. Me and my girlfriend have gone on vacation there a couple times though, but never been there before. So I'm really excited to go out and actually be in a new city, new state, and grow some new roots there. So when you got the call from the Browns and ultimately decided to sign with them, were you talking with head coach Stefanski, or are you talking with their GM, or how did that work? No, I was actually talking to their wide receiver coach, O'Shea. He called me up, and then one of their passing coordinators was on the phone too. And then once that call ended, my recruiter, Brandon Lynch, their DB's coach, called me, was talking to me and all that stuff. It was really great hearing from him. And then my agent started calling me. It was like, I'm on the phone with the Browns, Vikings and Bears and everything. So, and then I had other calls from other coaches and stuff too, though. But the Browns were in my head very much so.
And I'm sure you mentioned a bunch of calls within about 10 minutes. I'm sure those calls happened right after Brock Purdy was selected with that last pick, within that final 10 minutes of the draft.
Yep.
Yeah. A little overwhelming.
It was a little overwhelming because I'd be on a phone call, and I got done with a phone call with one of the coaches and said, I'll call you back in a couple minutes. And I called my agent. And as soon as I did that, I was getting a call back from that guy. So it was just like everything was happening. If I was on the phone with someone else was calling. So, and if I was on the phone with the coach, my agent was calling, like trying to tell me who was interested in stuff. So it was going back and forth, calling teams. So it was really, really cool to see that. Even though I wasn't a draft, I was a very high priority free agent. So that was really cool.
you feel a little starstruck here in front? I'm sure. I mean, for me personally, I didn't even play high school football, but like looking at these teams and guys you probably looked up to for a long time, it's like these people want me.
Yeah, it's insane, and especially what position they're putting me in. Like, because when it came down to the Bears and the Cleveland, they're looking for a big receiver that can stretch the field, and that's absolutely me. And when I look at their rosters, I'm someone who's going to take that, who would you think take that spot. And so those are great opportunities, and that's why they're coming after me. And I actually appreciated it. The QBs growing up, Justin Fields, Ohio State, Deshaun Watson, one of my favorite QBs, Clemson, when they're on Texans, and now at the Browns. Holy crap. And then being around the coaches, the players and stuff, and like guys that I've only dreamt around, like being around. So, and those teams wanting me, like, it's just as great as being drafted for me, honestly, that they still want me on the team. And I'm not someone who's going to shy away from competition and compete for a job and stuff. So I'm very much excited. So I can't wait to go down and show them what I'm able to do.
I think when you look at it in terms of the grand scheme of things of being an undrafted free agent, you get to choose of the teams that want you. You get to choose. And on top of that, I mean, do you feel like it's put a chip on your shoulder since you went undrafted? Yeah,
absolutely. The free agency where I get picked was a huge advantage to me, though. But in terms of getting drafted, I wanted to get drafted. And I felt like when I had these interviews with coaches and some of the scouts, I was being told, like, you are a draftable player. So I was like, all right, like, I'm good. And hearing stuff from my agent, you can go third day, like early, kind of mid. So like he was saying, like, 4th to 6th. And I was just like, all right, yeah, that's fine. Like, I'll get drafted. That's totally cool. So that was in my head. And when I didn't get drafted, I was very, very like upset, and on top of all the stress and everything. I definitely felt like it was hurtful, but at the same time, that's used as fuel. So I'm not going to forget that moment. I still have a great opportunity in the undrafted free agency. I'm on a team, trying out, make the roster and stuff. So it's just as good as being drafted, but it's in my ballpark. I get to choose where I want to go. I get to negotiate, or my agent gets to negotiate my contract and stuff. But no, it's a huge blessing. I have more fuel than any of the guys that got drafted, because I think it was a slight against me, because I thought I was a valuable enough player to be drafted. So, but I have a lot of teams to show out against. So it's definitely a lot of fuel for me.
There's another Panther that I think of that went undrafted, and his name is Kurt Warner. So, hey, let's just put it out there. Yeah. No pressure.
No pressure at all. Just had a great, phenomenal career. And I think I can make that happen.
Yeah, there we go. So we're talking with Isaiah Weston, newest Browns wide receiver, former UNI Panther, here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL. So what's the schedule look like for you? You're heading out to Cleveland here soon?
Yep. So next week, I head up May 12th, fly out. So I get there, there'll be a physical, get fitted for all my gear and stuff, introductory day really. And then we get into a rookie camp, our rookie OTAs for the weekend. And then after that, we have OTAs with the team. So I'll be pretty much in OTAs for a solid week, and then a couple of days off, and then we'll go into more training though. But from what I was told, packed for 6 weeks. So I'm looking forward to it. So my whole 6 weeks would be full go on football and the Browns, and making sure, getting confident in the playbook, doing everything I can to improve my game, show the coaches I'm dependable, trustworthy, and I deserve to be on the field, and taking every opportunity that they give me. Put me on special teams, take and run with it. Give me a shot at number 2, 4, 3 to eventually hopefully the ones. Take every opportunity I can get, milk everything I can. But looking forward to the 6 weeks when I fly on May 12th of training and stuff. So
there's a former Panther in Darius Fountain who's in the league right now. You played with him a little bit at UNI. Have you been able to pick his brain, or is anybody else, like even Coach Farley, offered anything of like, this is XYZ what you need to do in order to make the 53-man roster?
I've talked to Farley. There was a couple of days before, it was a week before before the whole draft, I was at UNI. He was just saying, as soon as you get off that plane, it's work. You're there, but it's exciting. But also at the same time, you get down to work, do what is needed. Really, it was just the whole like basic, just like come in, do your work, do what you normally do. That's how much trust he has in me, faith in me to be able to make a team. So he really made it sound like I was gonna be on a team. But Ellerson, my old roommate and one of my good friends, I was talking to him a lot. It was just come in. It's a lot of work. Come in, making sure you're cleaning up a lot of your mistakes. It's a little bit nitty gritty, but it's nothing out of the norm. I mean, it's the same thing I've been doing for past 6 years. It's come in, do your work, making sure that you're productive, making sure you stay on top of your work, making sure you're not doing anything stupid. So it's a lot of focusing on not doing the don'ts and doing the do's. So I can easily take care of that though, but it's not going to be a cakewalk by any means though, but it's definitely something that I am been prepared for and very capable of doing. So I don't worry too much about it.
So we talked a little bit about future teammates there in Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper. When it comes to Cooper, is that a guy you're really excited to pick his brain and learn from?
Yeah, Amari Cooper is actually one of my favorite wide receivers to watch in terms of how he runs his routes, his releases and stuff. So having a wide receiver on my team who's that is going to be amazing. Even if I've heard stuff in the news like Tannehill, like people asking him like, you could mentor Malik Willis or anything like that. He's like, that's not my job. If that ends up being like the case, whatever, I have film, I can see him, I have eyes, whatever he does, I can take advantage of. So, but I hope whatever room I'm in, the guys are very, very helpful. Would like to take me on their wing or anything like that though. But I know it's a cutthroat business. Everyone's trying to get their spot, and that's fine. I have eyes. I can see. I can apply. So, and I know if they hear this or whatever, I know they're not going to go on the field and ruin their career just so I can't learn. But no, I'm looking forward to having a receiver like him in the room because I've watched him at Alabama, and then obviously with the Tex with Dallas too. He's a great route runner. He's a great receiver, and I definitely will be able to learn a lot from him. So yeah.
Again, we're talking with Isaiah Weston, newest Cleveland Brown wide receiver from UNI football, undrafted free agent. The other one was Deshaun Watson. And so I know you had mentioned that you've been a huge fan of his. Is it going to be difficult not to fangirl when you show up?
The first thing I thought about when I get there, because when I got the phone with when I called Coach Lynch, I told him I was I'm coming to Browns. Got all excited and stuff. He was like, "You're gonna be the first person I hug." And then after that, I was just like, "All right, where's Watson? I need a picture or anything like that, though." But I'm gonna act like, even though like I'm saying like I'm a fan girl and everything, like he's one of my favorite QBs all the time. I'm gonna act like I've been there before. That's just who I am as a character and stuff like that. So when I go meeting him, it's gonna be business as usual, though. But inside, giddy as hell, super excited. I will try to somehow like sneak in like, hey, can I get a picture with you or something or something like that though. But no, super excited to be able to meet him and hopefully have him be my QB. So it's really super exciting.
Last thing for you, Isaiah. I've seen Browns fans, I've seen Panther fans. I've been saying it myself. You have more than a shot to get on that 53-man roster with the Browns. To Browns fans, what do you have to say to them coming in, and what do you have to say to Cleveland?
Cleveland, I'm ready to put my body and mind on the line for this team. I know I have stuff to work on. It's not anything that can't be coachable. I'm ready to improve my route running, my releases, anything I could do to help this team become more than what it is. We have the players and the staff, I believe, that can be able to do it too. So, but from a small school kid who got slighted in the draft. I'm coming back with vengeance. I'm coming back with wrath and everything. I'm ready to put my body and everything on the line. I love this game. I'll do everything I can to be on the field and be as productive and playmaker that I can be, that I have been throughout college and high school. So there's a lot I want to bring to the table, and I hope you guys give me the confidence and the support that I know you guys can for me to be able to do it though. But no, that's what I have for them.
He is Isaiah Weston, and he is back with a vengeance. So former UNI Panther wide receiver, newest member of the Cleveland Browns, joining us today. Isaiah, thanks so much for hopping on, man.
Of course, Elliot. Thank you for having me.
And that was Isaiah Weston here on the second segment today on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL. Don't go anywhere, but we'll be right back talking a little more statewide perspective on the NFL draft with Ryan Roberts of RisenDraft.com.
And we're back here on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk. 18 young men from the 3 state schools in Iowa are getting their first ever shot at having their dreams realized and playing in the NFL in 2022. 7 drafted, 11 so far picked up on undrafted free agent contracts. And now joining us here on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 and KOEL.com is friend of the show and our very own draft expert. You can put that in your Twitter bio if you want to, Ryan. Ryan Roberts joining us this morning. Ryan, thanks so much for hopping on again. First question for you. Of the 7 young men taken from Iowa, Iowa State, and UNI, who do you think is in the best situation to not only receive playing time as a rookie, but also succeed their rookie season?
Yeah, I really like the Breece Hall fit with the New York Jets, obviously, as the first running back there early in the second rounds. I think that situation, it's kind of weird, man, because usually you're kind of second-guessing a lot of the decisions the Jets made. I thought they had one of the better drafts, obviously, and he's walking into a situation where they have Michael Carter, who's a nice change of pace back, but they don't have the lead back in that system that is coming. Obviously they had the deep San Francisco ties now with the New York Jets, and they want to establish the run game. They want to run that Kyle Shanahan style of offense that has been very successful, obviously, over the years under Coach Saleh. So I think that you're going to see a big inflection of running it just in general, because you're going to have Mekhi Becton, who's obviously a huge guy coming back from injury. You're going to have Elijah Vera Tucker, who had a great season. They have had offensive lineman Laken Tomlinson was signed this last offseason from the San Francisco 49ers. So the offensive line is going to be very improved for the New York Jets this season. And I feel like Breece Hall is going to come in there day one and be the featured back. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's a 1,000+ yard rusher as a rookie.
Offensive rookie of the year type numbers, you think?
It's possible, man. It's possible. I think because a few of the wide receivers, while I like some of the landing spots that they did have, I think about, the Treylon Burks taking over the A.J. Brown role and Garrett Wilson also aligning with the New York Jets. And, they have Elijah Moore from last year. I think it's going to take a little bit of the honest off of him, potentially getting, added attention, obviously, as a rookie. But I think Breece is in a perfect situation. Again, I can see him be a 1,000-yard rusher. I think the one thing that people kind of underestimated about him, too, is he's a pretty good pass catcher, obviously, at his Iowa State career as well. So, yeah, I think that he would be one of the early favorites, maybe number one, because I think that he's going to touch the ball a lot for the Jets this season.
My first thought in terms of the best situation, it obviously Breece Hall is in that contention for me too. Was Tyler Linderbaum being center for the Ravens? He gets to be with a quarterback who's already been an NFL MVP, and the Ravens are just good year after year. What did you think about the selection by the Ravens and grabbing Linderbaum?
Yeah, I mean, whether it's Ozzie Newsome in the previous regime or it's Eric DeCosta now as the general manager for the Baltimore Ravens, they don't force the issue, man. They let good football players fall into their lap. They let Kyle Hamilton just slip to him at 14, and then they let, Tyler Linderbaum fall into their lap right there at 25. And I think for a lot of teams, Tyler Linderbaum was probably a top 10 player on their board, depending on what scheme you run, as if you're in that wide zone heavy scheme, obviously, in that approach. So I think that the Baltimore Ravens have the makings of a very potent rushing attack again as J.K. Dobbins comes back from injury. Lamar Jackson hopefully stays healthy this year. I think there's going to be a lot of projection to that running game this year, and I think Linderbaum is going to be a guy that's going to walk in day one and be the starting center. That was one of the spots where leaving the offseason and going into the draft, you just didn't really know what the answer was at center. They signed Morgan Moses. You knew he was going to be the right tackle. Obviously, they have Ronnie Stanley coming back from injury. They have a couple interior linemen that they like, but they didn't really have a true center that you really just looked at and said, that's the guy. So Linderbaum is another one. That would have been my number 2, as far as the best situation, because I think he falls into a spot where he's going to be the guy. He's going to a team that's annually very successful team, heavy run scheme, a veteran quarterback, like you said, veteran offensive lineman around him in general. So I think Linderbaum's going to do a really good job as a rookie.
How about these guys in these later rounds? Anybody that you like where they ended up, or the team that picked them? The Brock Purdy's, the Mr. Irrelevant, right? Uwazurike, Dane Belton, all those guys that got drafted in the later rounds.
Yeah, I really liked Dane Belton just in general. I mean, just real quick, I felt like he was one of the guys that not a lot of people talked about during the draft cycle, because he's a guy that played more of a nickel position for the University of Iowa. And I think that when you're talking about the safety class just in general, this was a pretty good overall year for him. But he falls into the Giants' lap a little bit there in the 4th round, I believe, is where he was drafted. And he's a really versatile defender. I think he can do a little. I mean, we've seen the Giants have had Logan Ryan on their team over the last couple of years. For me, he reminds me a lot of Logan Ryan. I think that he can play nickel, he can play safety. He can kind of be a versatile chess piece. So when I'm looking at Dane Belton, I really think that he falls into pretty much the perfect situation, to be honest, because I think that the Giants need a lot of help in the secondary. I think that he can fill a variety of roles in back on the back end as well. So I really like Dane. I actually had a 3rd round grade on him, so I was happy to see that he actually went a little earlier than I think media was projecting him. I kept seeing him like late day 3, but he ends up going early day 3, and I think that he's a value at that spot, to say the least.
And when you're as bad as the Giants are, you'll take that versatility. So nice pickup for them. In terms of everybody who went undrafted, like I said, 11 guys from these 3 state schools that went undrafted. Any guys that you like out of there? I mean, we talked about Isaiah Weston one time. We just interviewed him here on Cornstalk, the Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL. What do you think about Weston? And is there any other players that stood out to you? Maybe surprised they didn't get drafted?
Yeah, I think Isaiah Weston's a really good example, because I think the Cleveland Browns were the ones that picked him up as an undrafted free agent. He was unfortunately just kind of the circumstance of numbers this year. We mentioned obviously what a bigger class it was, and then obviously Weston has some injuries on his background. So those were going to be a little tough to, is he draftable? Is he a late round guy? Is he UDFA? And unfortunately, he just missed the cut. But I think when you're looking at the Cleveland Browns roster, I mean, they've had a lot of turnover at wide receiver, obviously, the last couple of years. You talk about Odell Beckham Jr., the trade last year. Jarvis Landry leaves this year. There's a lot of spots that are, just kind of up in the air. You have guys like Rashad Higgins coming back, who, has kind of been a hit or miss type of guy, but there's not really a substantial understanding of what the wide receiver room is going to look like outside of maybe obviously Maury Cooper that they traded for this offseason. So we'll see. I think that he has a profile that is absent on the Cleveland Browns right now, though. They don't have really that height, weight, speed type of combination. I mean, the kid is a legit 4'4" athlete, 40-inch vert dude at 6'4", 215, 20 pounds. Like, he's a big dude, to say the least. So I'm excited for the fit there. And I mean, the only other guy that I was actually I thought he actually could sneak into the late rounds, because I think that his upside is a little more than what it showed in college, was Chase Allen. And I don't even know where Chase Allen ended up going in as a UDFA, the tight end, backup tight end for Iowa State.
He went to the Bears. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so he is a guy that I actually picked him as my relative athletic score, like sleeper at the combine, but he ended up not really testing much outside of like the vertical jump. Cause I always thought that he was just like an underutilized player. I know he's got the good blocking, really long dude, but obviously playing with Charlie Kohler, you're not going to be the number 1 tight end on that team. But I think that he's a guy that keep an eye out there for people that just like the UDFA territory, because he's got length, he's got blocking prowess, and he's a better athlete than I think he gets a lot of credit for. So I'm excited to see Chase Allen, because I know they have Cole Kmet obviously in that tight end room, but it's been a tight end room that just in general is kind of underachieved over the last few years.
Yeah, I can see him definitely being a sort of second string tight end behind Cole Kmet, where he's just a reliable guy who's going to catch the ball when you throw it to him. He's going to block well. And if not, at the very least, he could get a spot on special teams because of his ability to block. Tyler Goodson was a bit of a surprise to me, not getting drafted. I know, well, he left school early and then he went undrafted. That's not the way you want to see things go. What do you think about Goodson going undrafted?
Yeah, there were some head scratchers, honestly. I know it's hard to predict sometimes because there was an overpopulation in this draft with the extra year of COVID. So some guys just, I think, fell through the cracks. That was a weird one for me, though, because he had good tape, in my opinion, really patient runner, good foot quickness, makes guys miss in the open field. I thought that his tape was really good. And then he went to the combine, ran the 4.4s. I'm like, yeah, like he kind of checks a lot of boxes. So he was definitely a curious one for me where I'm just kind of like, really, that's interesting. I think in years past, he's definitely drafted. There's no doubt. It's just, again, that overpopulation, I think, hurt a guy like a Tyler Goodson at a running back position, which people continue to just more and more undervalue in the modern game.
Right. Goodson ended up with the Green Bay Packers. I'm thinking that he'll get a roster spot up there too. And now one big name that is probably one of the biggest names to ever come out of UNI. He's the first round draft pick ever from Northern Iowa, Trevor Penning. I have been on so many radio shows and so many podcasts within the last week talking about Trevor. What'd you think about the Saints grabbing him at 19 in the first round?
Well, I mean, he was the guy that was pretty much linked to them all the whole time. I know when they originally traded up with the Philadelphia Eagles, it seemed like they were kind of jockeying for position to make sure they didn't get one of the offensive tackles or a quarterback. I didn't buy the quarterback conversation, obviously, and I didn't think that they were going to be in the realm to trade up to get one of the top 3 offensive tackles, even though I thought that run actually started a little later than I anticipated. I think Charles Cross was the last one. He went off the board number 9 to the Seattle Seahawks. So it was a little later than I thought the last offensive tackle would come off the board. But I think that the Saints definitely wanted to make sure that they had Penning in their lap, but they didn't even need to move up for him. I thought that they would actually maybe need to move up for an offensive tackle. They end up moving up to get Chris Olave, obviously the wide receiver, and then they stick there at 19. I think it was the final pick for Trevor Penning. So I thought that they would have to move up a couple spots to get Penning. Falls into the lap at 19. I think he's going to be put in a situation where he's going to have to play obviously early on because they do not have a left tackle with Teron Armstead out the door. You have Ryan Ramczyk. You have a couple of the interior offensive linemen that you valued, like Eric McCoy over the last few years. So there's some guys to kind of, put your hat on a little bit there and kind of ease him along. But unfortunately, fortunately for Trevor, he's going to have a lot of playing time this year because there is no other answer at left tackle. He has to be the guy for the Saints.
To me, it's just the technical stuff that he has to work on. Like, obviously, and just the technical stuff, right? He's a huge human being and a mauler. And to me, the thing that I've been telling folks on these shows is that he came into UNI and weighed 100 pounds less, was a twig. He was wearing a Kickers jersey when he came on his visit, and now he's 6'7", 330. So like it's clear that he can put in the work and put in the time. So that's not a huge concern for me. But before we let you go, Ryan, again, we're talking with Ryan Roberts, NFL draft analyst for RiseandDraft.com here on Cornstalks Sports Talk, AM 950 KOEL. Some more big picture stuff. Just talk about the NFL as a whole here. Who had the best draft overall, do you think?
I think it's Baltimore Ravens. I kind of mentioned it already, man. Like they are the consistent team that just does not overthink it, right? Like they just let good players fall into their lap and they take them. They took Kyle Hamilton at 14. Linderbaum obviously comes off the board at 25. They got, I think, Daniel Falele in the 4th round, which is tremendous value. They got Tyler Beatty, their running back from Missouri, in the 6th. Like it is just such a consistent approach to taking good football players. David Ojabo even falls to them in the 2nd round, who was going to be a top 20 player before the Achilles injury. I know he's going to obviously have the redshirt year, but tremendous value kind of working down the line. They get Travis Jones there in the 3rd round, I believe, if I remember correctly, out of UConn, where, man, I know Jordan Davis is a really good player that ends up going, the 13th overall pick to the Philadelphia Eagles, but I don't think the drop off from Jordan Davis to Travis Jones is 2 rounds worth. Like that was a massive drop for Travis Jones. I thought he had a chance to go late 1st, early to mid 2nd round, like somewhere in that ballpark. He doesn't go into the 3rd round. I think that they got a starting caliber nose tackle early in his career. So I think that Baltimore Ravens did a fantastic job. They even drafted a punter, and it didn't change my opinion, man, because I'm not a big fan of drafting punters, but drafting specialists in general. But they drafted one, and it did not make me second guess it at all. A fantastic draft overall. New York Jets, I think, earn a little bit of, an honorable mention. I thought they had a fantastic draft, especially what they did with with their 3 first-round picks. But for me, it's the Baltimore Ravens, and that kind of solidifies why the Ravens are just a consistently good team, because they just draft well and they don't overthink things.
And both of those teams pick guys from Iowa State. Breece Hall going to the Jets, of course, like we talked about, and then Charlie Kolar, which I thought was a great pickup, especially after they lose Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, and trade Hollywood Brown, I guess, which was just a whole nother topic to discuss. We got one more thing to talk with you before we let you go, Ryan. My big question mark out of the draft was Trayvon Walker going number 1 overall to the Jags. If I remember correctly, we talked about this, and not necessarily Walker specifically, but with the first overall pick, you had Evan Neal, you had Ike Ekwonu right there, and you got to protect your franchise quarterback, right? Like Trevor Lawrence has all the tools and the personality, the intangibles to be your franchise quarterback and be one of the best quarterbacks in the league for a long time. And then you go defense and pass rusher again. And Walker's no guaranteed thing either.
Yeah. No, it's always been a head scratcher, man. I was pushing back against the Trayvon Walker thing even when he was the betting favorite leading up to the draft. It's just the Jets, for one, they let Cam Robinson talk themselves out of drafting an Evan Neal or an offensive tackle just in general, which, in my opinion, he's a below average offensive tackle, and you'd let that stop you from protecting your franchise quarterback, like you mentioned. I mean, the best asset you have is that you have a rookie quarterback who's a plus upside quarterback on a rookie deal. Like, that is your biggest asset you have to your franchise right now, and you chose not to protect him. And even if we want to say, okay, they like Cam Robinson, cool, I guess, let's move past that for a second. If you're taking defensive end, I'm probably taking Kayvon Thibodeau with that first pick. I'm not taking Trayvon Walker. The peaks and the valleys are just way too high for me right now. And I know in this class that maybe the talent up top wasn't to the usual degree, and maybe you're going to take a gamble on traits. I get that, but Trayvon Walker just makes me very uneasy, to say the least.
He is Ryan Roberts of RiseandDraft.com. Find him on Twitter at RiseandDraft. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us again. You're the man. You're my draft guy. Like I said, put it in the bio. That's all I'm saying.
Love it, man. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you. It's been a fun draft season. And thank you as always for having me.
And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Corn Stalks and Sports Talk here on AM 950 KOEL. Once again, thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget, if you missed any part of today's episode on the radio, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and of course, KOEL.com. It's all archived there. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave that rate and review. It does help us out a lot. You can always follow me on Twitter at Elliot Clough. Once again, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. This was Corn Stalks and Sports Talk.